The morning sun spilled across the naval base, glinting off steel and sand as new recruits lined up for their first endurance drill. The air buzzed with nervous chatter, laughter mixed with pride. But amid the sea of uniforms stood one woman, her posture quiet, her expression unreadable. She wore no visible rank, no hint of authority. To everyone else, she looked like another rookie slight, reserved, maybe even fragile. Her name was Elaine Porter, and before the day was over, the recruits who mocked her would learn the truth that the woman they thought was a nobody was, in fact, the base's incoming admiral. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you were rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening. Elaine had arrived unannounced, dressed in a standard recruit's uniform. No medals, no titles, just the same coarse fabric and stitched name patch as everyone else. She wanted to see the base through unfiltered eyes, how they treated newcomers, how they led when they thought no one important was watching, and what she saw was disappointing. My male recruits had already singled her out. "You're new here, huh?" One of them sneered. "Hope you can keep up. We don't slow down for tourists." Elaine smiled faintly. "Don't worry. I've done a few laps before." They didn't know she meant laps across combat zones, across oceans, across decades of service. The whistle blew, and the recruits burst forward across the dirt field. Dust rose around them, boots pounding rhythmically. Within seconds, two of the men tried to box her in, throwing elbows, cutting her path. But Elaine didn't react. She adjusted her breathing, eyes steady, and ran through them like water slipping past rock, fluid calm, inevitable. By the third lap, they were gasping. She wasn't. When the drill ended, the sergeant barked for push-ups. The recruits hit the dirt. Elaine followed, her movements precise. The men beside her struggled, sweat pouring. She didn't even tremble. "You military before this?" One of them grunted. Elaine glanced sideways, her tone casual. Something like that. That answer unsettled them more than silence. By midday, frustration boiled. In the mess hall, they surrounded her table. 6 men now, all sneering, their pride bruised by a stranger's quiet competence. "You think you're better than us?" one asked. Elaine set down her fork. Her eyes met his, calm and unblinking. "No, I just think you can do better than this." The tension snapped. One reached for her shoulder, and that's when it happened. In less than 2 seconds, his wrist was pinned. Another lunged, she pivoted, sweeping his legs. The third tried from behind. She sidestepped, sending him sprawling into the table. Metal trays clattered. Gasps filled the room. When it was over, no one else moved. She stood still, composed, her breathing even. The entire hall went silent. The door opened. A commanding voice cut through the tension, at ease. It was Captain Harlow, the base commander. His boots echoed as he entered, followed by 2 senior officers. The recruits straightened instantly. But then, something strange happened. Captain Harlow saluted to her. Every jaw in the room dropped. "Admiral Porter," he said formally, voice steady but laced with respect. "We didn't expect your evaluation to begin this early." The silence deepened. Every recruit froze, realizing the woman they'd mocked, cornered, and underestimated was the highest-ranking officer they'd ever stand before. Elaine's expression softened slightly. "That's the point of an evaluation, Captain. Can't see true character through ceremony." She turned toward the recruits who now looked like statues of guilt and shame. "I came here today not to test your strength, but your integrity. You failed both." Her words weren't shouted, they didn't need to be. The quiet disappointment hit harder than any reprimand. One of the recruits stammered, "Ma'am, we didn't know." Elaine nodded. "Exactly. You didn't know. That's why you should treat everyone with respect, because you never know who they are, or what they've done to stand where they stand." The recruits' faces burned with regret, but she wasn't finished. "Every one of you," she said, her voice low but clear, "has potential. But arrogance is the fastest way to waste it. You want to lead soldiers? Learn to recognize dignity, not just rank." She glanced at the overturned table and smirked softly. "Also, clean this up before I report it as your first failed team exercise." The room let out a nervous chuckle. Even Captain Harlow smiled faintly. As she walked away, the air shifted, not with fear, but respect. True, earned respect. Later that evening, Elaine stood outside by the docks, the sunset bleeding gold across the waves. The same recruits approached her, slower now, humbled. Turner, the one who'd mocked her most, saluted sharply. "Ma'am, permission to apologize." She returned the salute gently. Permission granted. He hesitated. "You won't forget this, Admiral." Elaine smiled, eyes soft. "You just remember the lesson, not the embarrassment." They nodded, and for the first time all day, they stood taller. Because leadership isn't about who wears the stars, it's about who earns the respect. And respect doesn't come from rank. It comes from restraint, humility, and grace under pressure. She came as a recruit. She left as a reminder, because character doesn't announce itself, it reveals itself when no one's watching. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone underestimated only to rise above in silence? I'd love to hear your story. Read if this one moved you. Don't forget to subscribe to Whispered Words, where stories of quiet strength and unseen courage come alive every week.